Are you a growth mindset leader or fixed mindset? Build it once and let it work for you for years. Like, let's be real with yourself. Are you this or that?
Can you think of examples of good company and a bad company and how it affects, your work as a recruiter?
You're dealing with a person, not a product. They don't
Okay.
want the same mundane items. They
Okay.
get bored. They want to be able to pivot in the organization, not get stuck in the one role they got hired for.
Today we'll focus on building an attraction engine. But first let's define for the reader, what is an attraction engine exactly?
Good question. What is an attraction engine? When I initially was thinking through this, the attraction engine is what I refer to as the rockstar attraction engine.
Okay.
It's the message, the who, then the brand and culture is that foundation. And I'd love to have that in the book where I have this framework where it's message, who,
Mm-hmm.
brand, culture, or whichever sounds better. Brand, I feel like brand, but culture as well, because culture is part of your brand. And the attraction is really how you influence high performers to be attracted to you.
I mean, why did you come up with I know there's a reason for it, but why did you come up with the word engine and not some other thing?
Because you have to keep the momentum going. The attraction happens within the first interaction, but then it continues. It's like a constant flow. You can't just turn it off. If you turn it off, you risk losing this rock star in the recruiting process.
It also makes me think of like so a lot. So recruitment will come from like dedicated efforts that companies make. For example, hiring you. That's like an active measure that they take. But I also imagine. Tell me if this is wrong, but imagine if you have a strong recruiting engine, and recruitment happens passively too, because rock stars know your company in the field and they're kind of naturally attracted to you without you
Mhm.
having to reach out to them. Is that also part of it?
Yes, yes, that is certainly part of it, especially with the passive talent and as well as active. That
Mhm.
once you have that engine going organically, inherently, it's going to help that flow.
So yeah, this concept of the foundation. Obviously, rock stars want to work for companies that have a strong culture, that have a positive environment,
Mhm.
and that's important. That's the foundation.
The rapport that you build with your team, the strong sense that they feel that you actually care outside of work, that is something that helps attract and also retain versus, let's say, perks like, okay, we have a wellness center, we have a gym. Like, oh, that's great,
Hmm.
but we're dealing with human beings that have emotions and feelings that they might not always talk about. You're dealing with a person, not a product.
Okay.
So if your environment is truly caring and you really, really appreciate the efforts that they put in and you are explicit about that, the recognition piece, that's a very attractive to a high performer.
Okay. Can you think of examples of good company and a bad company and how it affected your work as a recruiter? Can you recall a couple off the top of your head?
I would say great companies, they offer
But
room to get fast track to the next level, and they are having interactions on a more personal level and not only focused on work.
okay. But I mean specific in companies that you've dealt with yourself.
Yes.
Can you think of can you talk briefly about how you've seen this play out? And again, it can be a good
Mhm.
example of somebody that did it right and also one that did it wrong. You know, we don't need like a long story,
Right,
just
right. It goes back to what I just said as well. One of my clients that I've had since inception, a
uh-huh.
national advisory firm, they are really great with ensuring that there isn't a tenure mark that gets in the way of reaching the next level, that it's really dependent on efforts, but They have extracurricular activities that form a deeper relationship with the talent that they have. So
Okay.
they attract the talent through sometimes networking events and something unrelated to work
Um,
that forms a deeper relationship. So that could be part of the attraction engine. That's your brand. Your brand, part of your brand, if part of your brand is to build deeper rapport and relationships, I've seen that be very, very successful. And not just, okay, we need to just hire someone. What kind of environment have you created to build that rapport with someone who really puts in a lot of efforts into their career and they really care more than the average person? The rock star cares more than the average person. So how are you showing that you care in your environment as well?
and specifically, how does this advisory firm do that? I mean, you mentioned like opportunities for advancement, extracurricular activities, but get a little more specific. Like, what do they really do?
They
You
have
know,
events that occur that are very motivational
okay,
that I've never seen in other organizations where
okay, good.
they bring on great speakers to speak of different successes, opens their minds, helps them leverage wisdom from those that are in even in the industry that they're in because everything's applicable. So they attend an event that's motivational. They
Mm-hmm.
network with others, they hear great speakers, and then they have takeaways they apply to their personal and professional life. That
Okay.
is transformation. So if your environment can create some type of transformation within, that could be very, very, I've seen that be very attractive.
Do you also want to speak somehow to the rock stars themselves about how they can find? I mean, it's kind of like it's a different audience, and so a different
Mhm.
kind of a different topic. So it may not fit, but it depends who you're really trying to reach. But is that also an audience that you want to communicate with somehow, or is the bulk of your business really from companies that hire you to recruit rather than
Yeah,
individuals?
this will be more for my recruiting business. My
Okay.
career coaching would be a different audience. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, these are really different audiences and different
But
books.
one item, now that you're talking about the YouTube, there is one item in leadership that attracts professionals or rock stars,
Okay.
and that's a growth mindset leader. And I have talked about this quite a bit
Okay.
versus a fixed mindset leader. So, growth mindset, again, talking about the attraction engine, your brand, are the continuous improvement. That aligns with a leader who has a growth mindset. But if a leader has a fixed mindset and this rock star is seeing that the tone at the top is fixed, the traction's not going to be there. So
Got it.
maybe thinking through, like maybe asking a question, are you a growth mindset leader or fixed mindset? Like, let's be real with yourself. Are you this or that? Because if you're this, it's going to be very hard. Growth,
Okay.
that's the attraction. That's the brand that they're attracted to. Growth mindset. And that's a good one. I wasn't even thinking about that until now. It's really, really important actually, because it's a trickle down effect. If the tone at the top has a fixed, they're not going to be able to grow as fast. They're not going to be able to have more challenge. And that's something they thrive in.
Well, let's go back to what you said before. There's the three elements of the traction engine.
Yes.
Okay. So we've been talking about brand, culture. I mean, would you put environment as part of
Brand
that?
is tone at the top, that growth mindset, and that strong, strong rapport, the deep connection. You have a surface level connection with a rock star. It's hard to retain talent that they don't feel loyalty when you don't have that deep connection. You want to build loyalty with a rock star,
Mhm.
just in
Yeah.
general. I know this might not be part of it, but if it can somehow be emphasized that if your brand can do this, well, that's a
Yeah.
trickle down effect to your retention. This is a
Yeah.
long-term investment when you build a deeper connection.
The who matters the most. How the first interaction influences success. I mean, we talked a lot about that already, but just
Yeah.
tell me all about that.
I want to emphasize in my book that attraction equals influence, and that influence is occurring at every stage of the recruiting process. And every stage contains certain communication steps, with the first communication step being that first interaction, whether it's the external recruiter, internal team member. The influence is starting, of course, with the brand, but then now it's that first person. And that first who, that's why I mentioned the who is really, really important. They're setting the tone. They're setting
Okay.
the tone for the whole process. So imagine, let's do a metaphor real quick. Imagine you're going out on a date with someone you don't know. And your first interaction with this person is they're so aggressive. They don't even want to learn more about you. They're just talking about themselves. Do you feel a connection to this person? Do you think you want to go on a second date? Or
Right.
are you going to be like, okay, I'm going to go on a different date with someone else? Same thing. A high performer will get, we have to remember that the rock star, this high performer, is going to easily get turned off. So if this who is turning them off in this first interaction, forget about moving forward. Forget about
Mm.
this being successful. It's going to be a waste of time because they've already set the tone incorrectly.
Okay.
They've decreased the likelihood that this is going to work out. And so, where a lot of hiring companies get this wrong is they do have the wrong who in the process. And I have seen this many times. And that's
Oh,
why I emphasize this so much. It's a
yeah.
detail that you would think is so small, but it's really big.
Tell me about some of these specifics that you've seen. Um, Share some examples, some stories. Here we really want to get specific about what, that first two, the first person,
Mhm.
they do, think, say, look like, act like, you know.
So the first person comes in. They didn't even look at the person's resume or their LinkedIn profile. They're
Okay.
blindly coming in, asking questions
Hmm.
that some of them possibly they could have known already.
Okay, yeah, that's so annoying, man. Me personally.
Now, this rock star is thinking, you haven't even done your diligence on me.
Yeah.
Look at all the career success I've had, no recognition. It's like, that's not attractive.
Yeah.
They put their heart and soul into their career, and
Mhm.
someone's coming in and just dismissing, almost dismissing what they've accomplished
Mhm.
by not even mentioning it.
How go on. No, I don't want to derail your thoughts, to continue.
And so the conversation goes, okay, you've done no diligence about me, but now you're asking me technical questions. You haven't built any rapport.
What would an example of a technical question be?
I mean, in finance and accounting, it could vary depending on their skill set. So let's say someone's hiring for an FP&A director.
Hmm.
They really want to understand some at times what what have they done on the financial modeling side, let's say
Hmm.
within a cash flow statement. Super
Oh,
important because the cash flow statement goes to the balance sheet, incomes, everything flows together through the cash flow statement. Super important. If you understand that statement, financial
hmm.
statement, it really does help.
Okay. But it's not a good question to ask right off the bat.
It is a good question, but how are you starting off the conversation?
Hmm.
If you're completely dismissive, you've done no diligence, it's not a, a great representation of anyone's brand.
Yeah.
And where some hiring companies go wrong is, oh, well, everyone wants to come work for us, for example.
Okay.
But that should not be the assumption. The assumption should be this person has so many options because they are a rock star.
Ah,
So treat them like that.
okay.
Give them a compliment, for example. That's going to attract them a little bit more. You don't have to be overly generous with compliments, but for example, I've seen your success in XYZ. Tell me a little bit more about this. They're going to say, oh my gosh, this person really cares about my background. They
Hmm.
did some diligence. A
Taking
really
notes.
good attraction through the first two is building rapport even outside of their technical skills. Let's say they look at the university they went to or they're part of a specific community.
Uh-huh.
Do you know anyone else in your organization that's part of that you can connect this person with? Because that's going to build the attraction. There's a commonality.
Oh, you say
That's
like
a really good process when you do
you
that.
say, you say like our CFO also went to, UC Irvine or something like that, or
Go as
oh, I see
far.
you're from Seattle, so our so and so is also from that area, or like is that kind of thing, or
Yes and no, that can always be mentioned. What can also be very powerful is when you're looking at your organization, you're seeing, does someone have a commonality with this rock star that we're about to interview? Can we, and this is going to engage it, and we can mention, hey, this is also part of engage. This is part, that would be part two. You know, we could
Mhm.
always reference that, but everything's related. But can we get this person in the process early on to build the momentum high? Because the whole point of attraction is it's influence, but it starts the momentum. How are we going to start this revving our engine high? Like, so we could go faster.
Can you clarify what that means? Like, you earlier said attraction equals influence. Specifically, what does that mean? Like, especially because influence is kind of a vague term.
Yes.
So you influence in what way exactly?
Attraction is almost like selling.
Okay.
You're not explicitly, there's subtle selling happening within every interaction. And this is something they're not always thinking about.
Okay.
The best companies sometimes don't think through it like this. But when
Uh-huh.
they do, and they really pay close attention to every detail, they are increasing the likelihood that they're going to close this rock star. Very, very, very important, this detail that I would love to emphasize. You know, selling is happening, selling and influence is happening throughout every interaction.
Okay, good.
And sorry, just to go back to your question.
You said attraction equals influence. So I just wanted to get some clarification on what, like, when you say influence, what exactly do you mean? Like, influence by whom, of what? Like,
The rock star is being influenced. Like if you really are interviewing a rock star and considering a rock star, the influence starts with this first interaction, and they are going to be influenced by the interaction that they have with this
mm-hmm.
first person. So they are going to be influenced whether or not they even want to move forward. So even though you're interviewing and they're in the process, it doesn't mean they're going to continue the process with your company. The whole goal is, let's take it a step at a time. How can we optimize every single step to yield the
Right.
best outcome that we're going to secure this rock star? That's
Okay.
the goal too. I'm going off on different tangents, but this is all, you know, related. The
Yeah.
optimization is very important. Every organization has room for improvement in their recruiting process, is what I've seen with 15 years of being in the industry now. On the hiring side, now recruiting, there's always room.
That's
One
it.
one incremental change, believe it or not, I've seen have a huge positive ROI. Majority of the time, they do not know there's a problem. Leaders don't know that there's a problem within their recruiting process until they start digging in and asking questions. For example, I had a story I wanted to tell you about I know we're getting into this in the outline. I spoke to a partner of a top 10 public accounting firm right
Mm-hmm.
underneath the big four. And when I spoke to him, and he was telling me about his pain point of their talent is just not the best right now. They're having challenges attracting the right talent to their organization. They're hiring a lot of low performers. That's not what they want to continue to do. And I just posed the question about messaging. When I posed the question, it got him thinking. Okay, it actually, no, it didn't just get him thinking. It got him to take action. He went to HR the next day.
How did you phrase it exactly?
To be even more specific, he saw a content post, a written post on my LinkedIn profile.
Yeah, these have been kind
Hence
of
why he may have opened up pretty quickly to explain some of his team's challenges. And I don't truthfully, I don't recall word for word, but it was
yeah, it'll be in a
powerful when I asked the question. You know, why? First, it's just like general. Why do you think there are challenges?
right.
I started digging in a little bit more. Who's the first interaction is what I asked as well. Do you know what their messaging is like in that first interaction? Very, very important because yes, leaders are great, but sometimes they might overlook this small detail that's going to set the tone.
Okay.
He was almost like, oh my God, we have an issue. We
And
have a huge issue after he realized that when he spoke to HR, saw the messaging, he said, this messaging is all wrong. The way
What
they're
was
articulating, sorry, the way they are articulating how we are growing the
uh,
role is completely wrong. It's not going to attract the right person.
what was wrong about it?
They didn't update how they articulate the actual company and the growth that they're going through. There's stale messaging, no optimization, no updates to how they are explaining an opportunity to a great rock star.
But specifically, what might that look like? Like, was it just that they were leaving out some of the good things that this company was doing? That, like, if I'm a bad recruiter or just an HR person that
Mhm.
doesn't know how to recruit properly, and I'm trying to recruit this person, just put yourself in the mind of, yeah, that, let's say, underwhelming HR person and their bad messaging. What might that sound like if, when they actually like
It just
speak?
sounds like any other job. It doesn't sound like a growth opportunity. Unappealing, unexciting, not emphasizing the vision of the company, the vision of the leaders. Sales process in recruiting a rock star. The messaging is very important. We always, back in the day, they referred to it as copywriting, and they still
Mhm.
do. But that is part of your attraction engine, that messaging.
Yeah. Okay, good.
If there
No,
aren't specific items that you're emphasizing, you're doing your organization a disservice, you're doing the leader a disservice. And that leader
mm-hmm.
should know. That leader should be asking, how are you approaching candidates? Let me hear. We're going to get into this in another chapter, the role play. Let me hear what you're saying. What are you emphasizing? Just ask that question. And maybe that could be an interactive piece. Have you asked your HR team or talent acquisition team what their messaging is looking like and what they are emphasizing in the process?
Where do you start looking for candidates?
Where we have some rapport, some networks,
Okay, just like
built
how.
some trust, definitely there, because we also have to use this attraction engine. If they look at my brand, my profile,
Mhm.
what I'm putting out there,
Yeah, yeah. I
the
mean, like,
message I'm putting out there, has to be attractive to them too.
yeah. So you send a email or something. I mean, we don't have to like
Yeah,
reveal.
either email or if I'm friendly with them, could be a text message, a message on LinkedIn. Depends.
Okay, so your network is so vast that it might even be someone that you already know
Yes.
personally, not just a friend of a friend or colleague of a
Yeah.
colleague. And you also just like, if there's no one in your network, would you like peruse LinkedIn or something else?
I'll use the power of my brand to build new relationships
And what does that mean?
or referrals from people that I know. I will leverage my brand on LinkedIn. This is really important, actually, and this is a huge differentiator, why I'm
Uh,
different. My brand on LinkedIn is more trusted than others, is
okay.
what I see with our results. Because of our turnaround time, I can tell we have a turnaround time that is above probably industry average in recruiting a rock star. This engine, we've built an engine now, being 7+ years in the recruiting side, but 15+ years in the industry. So why I emphasize all these things, because I've seen it work for us as well, and hiring companies that I work with, my clients. So for example, David, if I were to reach out to someone cold, doesn't
Yeah.
know me, I have seen that we have a higher success rate because of our brand. Let's do a quick metaphor. For example, let's say you're in real estate and there's one real estate agent that deals with luxury properties, maybe 1 million plus. And then there's a real estate agent that deals with, let's say, 500,000 and below. And I've used this in one of my LinkedIn posts. I forget which one it was,
Okay.
but I feel really strongly about the correlation here.
Okay.
If you want to sell your $5 million home, which real estate agent are you going to hire to get this job done to get results for you
Right.
faster? The real estate agent that's focused on luxury or the real estate agent that's focused on below luxury?
Mm-hmm.
Still, the other real estate agent is great, but the category is different. So that's what I'm referred to as a brand. If you're a brand that just hires a body, that's
Mm-hmm.
different who you're attracting. And so our brand is more high performers, the rock stars. So when they see that, when they see our testimonials too, more trust is built.
Mm-hmm. All right, let's go into some more detail about the attraction engine is your marketing and your messaging. Define your mission, vision, and values and communicate those to people you're recruiting. Yeah, let's get more specific here. Maybe some examples. So
Mhm.
what are they doing exactly that's wrong?
There's confusion in the marketplace. They don't know what the company stands for. Go read your website. Can you really tell what your mission is? Most of the time you can't, and it doesn't even resonate. If there's confusion in the marketplace about your brand, your values, do you think that traction is going to go higher, be high, or low?
I mean, so many of these like corporate mission, vision statements really are all kind of sound the same. And maybe that's inevitable because there's only so
Mm-hmm.
much you can say, but I would think, yeah, if I'm a candidate who's being recruited, then I would look for, well, we talked about it before, but like, I guess it's a question of values too. Like you want to work for companies that have the same values. So I
Mm-hmm.
guess I'm stating the obvious here. But tell me about that. I don't know. Let's just riff on this subject
Yeah,
for like
values.
and give some examples of this marketing and messaging.
Sometimes it's not explicit in what you see out there.
Okay, good.
Some of it's so implicit and you're just expecting them to know. We can't have the assumption that they just know. That's first, just like a basic
Mm-hmm.
rule of messaging. And
Mm-hmm.
so the values, if it's very explicit, that is great. I mean, it's going to go into the asset. I did write some notes for the testimonials and things of that nature that, okay, although you're saying these are the values, this is the mission, do you have anyone in your organization speaking about it?
Mm-hmm.
Words are one thing. When they see a video, when they see some type of person
Mm-hmm.
that is a rock star too, speaking about it and is passionate, has that energy, what do you think is going to happen?
Okay.
Words only do so much. But when there's a connection to an actual person speaking and you see this person, it's going to have a bigger effect.
This is another point which you had made, which is simplifying your messaging.
Yes.
So it's kind of like the opposite. Instead of like you don't want to be too vague, but you also don't want to be you don't want to say too little, but you don't want to just be throwing everything but the kitchen sink at them because like if you
Yes.
try to say everything, then you say nothing.
Yes.
So tell
Yes.
me about that and like especially this is the key point. What resonates the most with the top performer you want? So how I mean like how should a recruiter for company recruiting handle that? Like how do you kind of simplify your messaging and zero in on the thing that's gonna
Oof.
resonate?
First, you have to have a benchmark that's just out there. When you're simplifying your messaging, what's the best benchmark you can have that applies to most high performers if you have that high performance environment?
Okay.
But then when you have individual interactions and when you're learning more about what drives them, what motivates them, how they want to continue to succeed in their career and in their life, now you're pivoting this benchmark to that person. So for example, I actually wrote this down. Let's say your company offers the ability to be fast tracked to the next level without hitting a 10-year mark, going back to that other example. And
Mm-hmm.
you also offer a very competitive equity award or a very competitive bonus structure.
Mm-hmm.
But this rock star cares more about getting to the next level versus the financial piece.
Okay.
If you keep emphasizing the financial piece, it's almost like repelling them. That's not in alignment with
Right.
what is most important to them. And I've seen this actually happen too. The company automatically thinks that their bonus is going to be more attractive than anything else, or their equity plan, their equity award, especially startups. They think, oh my God, our equity award's amazing. No, they're not just looking for the financial piece. And that's the difference between a true rock star and
Mm-hmm.
the average. True rock stars, they of course want to be competitively compensated. But if
Mm-hmm.
the growth opportunity is not there and it's not emphasized, they're not going to feel as connected.
Okay.
So pivot, have that strong benchmark in your messaging, and then pivot for individual interactions as you get to know the person.
Okay, so like find out what really resonates with them and then tailor your pitch to what resonates. If there is in
Yes.
fact in line. Obviously you can't make a, if someone's
If
really
there
into
is, yeah.
environmental stuff and your company doesn't care about that, you can't just make
Mm-hmm.
it more like take the elements of your company and tailor the messaging to, yeah, I see what you mean.
Well, I mentioned this because I've seen this happen in the interview process. They talk about maybe the equity award for 10 minutes. And
Mm-hmm.
this great rock star is more interested in how can they make a bigger impact in this organization? How can they
Mm-hmm.
continue to grow, achieve the next level? That is so attractive to them. If, again, going back to law of attraction, what's most attractive to them is when they hear what's in alignment with them
Right.
versus, yes, it could still motivate them, the other piece, but it's not as motivating as this one piece that's most important. So law
Right.
of attraction will work really, really well in the messaging when you're pivoting and emphasizing what's most important to them.
Break down like the process you use, just like the first step. So like before we even get to setting up an interview or everything like that,
Yes.
like what we're talking about today, this first interaction, what does that actually look like? Is that like an hour long Zoom call? Is it like a quick 15-minute getting to know you? Is it face to face, lunch meeting? Like what does that actually look like? And is it just one call? Is it several? Do you
Could
miss
be
it?
all of the above.
Okay.
But I want the reader to know what the standard is. Does
Uh,
not matter what type of interaction. Of course, you're going to have multiple interactions to make sure you're making a great decision on this person and to
mhm.
really get to know them. But this standard of pivoting your messaging should apply to every interaction.
Do you want to give advice on like how like time, place, and manner of first interactions as far as like do you keep the first call brief or do you want to get into depth?
Hmm.
'Cause I guess you gotta find a balance between like rock stars want to feel like they're being actively pursued, but maybe some of them don't want to schedule a bunch of calls.
Yes, that's a good question. The first interaction, it should be more of let's get to know each other. Let's see if there is alignment,
Okay.
because that's going to set the tone to make a good decision on both ends.
Would you do most of the talking then, or you let them? I guess you would let them do most of the talking, right? Or how does that work?
That's a good question. I highly, highly recommend a two-way conversation.
Okay.
It cannot be one-sided, this first interaction, because
Okay.
there's an assessment done still. Let's make sure this is a rock star, first of all, and let's see what they have to offer, of course, by asking great questions, pivoting, building rapport. But always remember, you're assessing. You can't just assume this is a rock star, of course, but
Hmm.
certainly two-way discussion. Don't come in there just drilling questions, not being prepared. Yeah, that would not work very well. Give them the
You
opportunity to talk because they want to tell you more about themselves. And if they're really interested in you, they want to sell themselves too.
leverage part of marketing and messaging and whatnot,
Yes.
leveraging your social media assets, which
Hmm.
really includes everything from content that a company's published to success stories from employees, testimonials from others. I don't know if that's relevant. All this kind of like extra media that might influence
Hmm.
its perception of the company that's recruiting them. Tell me how they should do that.
So part of the attraction engine, the brand, the culture, it's let's make it explicit and not implicit.
Okay.
That's the whole goal. When you're building assets to explicitly promote your brand, put it in the best light. That really is the goal of building this attraction engine. And how you do that is you leverage employee success stories. And this isn't just going to be, oh, I love working for this company. That's not depth. We need depth. And depth could mean that someone joined the organization, it transformed their career. It transformed their personal life. It made them a better person. Let's talk more about transformation versus it being so surface level. I'm not talking about having a great experience at the company. So I'm definitely want more depth. If they they came in as, let's say, a manager, now they're a VP level. They've had a lot of success, and others are going to be attracted to that because remember, high performers want to excel. They want to get to the next level. And if it's a possibility they could get fast tracked, and that's in a testimonial or in an employee success story, that's great. You're promoting your brand. Your culture or your environment has allowed that to happen. So why not promote that in an asset like a testimonial or a success story?
Okay. And these would be like pre-recorded things that are on the website, or it would be things made specifically for the recruitment process, or would it even be like a live kind of like, hey, let me bring on so and so to share their story, or like what form would these stories actually take?
Well, it would be anytime you're building some type of asset that's going to work in your brand's favor, it should be where you're thinking this is going to work for a long time, not just for this year. So strategically, which case studies and which employee success stories are you leveraging? That's really important. It can't just be any. It has to be the best. Has to be the best ones that you feel could live on for 20 years, not just the next 5 years. Because it is going to be time and energy and effort on your team to create this asset that's going to live on. But that's the mindset is this has to be a long-term asset that can live on.
I mean, and where would it be published typically? Like social media, right? All the usual places.
Everywhere you can. Everywhere there's an opportunity. LinkedIn, your website, let's say directly applying to your role. Why not add a link to the success stories? I want to mention that I have a mentor in the book. As my mentor always says, build it once and let it work for you for years versus just for the next 12 months, the next 3 months. You really want it to work in your favor for years. When you purchase a product, let's say on Amazon, you see 1-star reviews, then you see 5-star. You're like, okay, I'm building confidence with the 5-star reviews to make this purchase versus you see no reviews. You're still wondering. You have no confidence. You're just like, oh, okay, I got to make it the best decision I can. But then you see a employee success story, a testimonial, and it resonates with you right away. What do you think is going to happen to that rock star? They're going to get pulled in. The law of attraction is going to pull them in. So if you want to discuss that metaphor, I feel like that could be a strong one because it helps build confidence in the decision-making process in general.
All right, let's talk about, we touched on it earlier and then we kind of veered off, but are there like do's and don'ts, best practices? I know we already kind of touched on them, but are there any other specifics that the company should be aware of when like figuring out who that, the whole idea of the who is what counts and whatnot?
Certainly emphasizing that the who has to be able to pivot the conversation. They have to be able to have more deeper conversations, not surface level. If it's a surface level interaction, you're not building attraction. There's a high level of sensitivity around this first interaction. That's how they should be thinking through it. Meaning you could lose someone that's great that can positively impact your ROI because of this horrible first interaction or because of an unappealing first interaction. If this first interaction is not taking into consideration this rock star's aspirations and really learning more about them on a deeper level, just in general to emphasize that deeper level. So going back to the law of attraction, it's not going to increase that intensity for the next step. It's going to decrease it. So if this wrong who comes in the picture, doesn't learn about that side of them, just focuses on technical, there's no rapport and connection. It's hard. It's going to be hard for them to want to move forward.
What are some of the things that they should learn, not the technical stuff, but when you talk about like rapport, personality, what are we really looking for specifically? Like, what's the company looking for in the candidate, and what is the candidate looking for in the company? What are the things that matter most to rock stars?
The things that matter most to them is growth, like
Professional.
growth in general, whether it's personal, professional, it's always growth. Repeatedly, every day I have a conversation, every
Okay.
day I hear growth. Every day it's like embedded into my brain,
Okay, that's really good to emphasize.
which in the foundational block, growth has to be a factor. If it's not, you have to be real with yourself. You're not going to attract high performers if there's no growth.
You know, growth in your own company. Your company needs to grow. It needs
There
to be a
has to
place
be
of
some
fulfillment.
challenge, some excitement. If it's
Yeah.
just the same thing, you're not, then don't hire a rock star. Hire someone else.
Yeah. So the like rock stars when you so growth can mean many things. So like what are some kind of specific elements of growth that rock stars look for? I mean, I can surmise, but what have you seen? Like what really makes them tick?
Challenge in their day to day. They don't
Okay.
want the same mundane items. They get
Okay.
bored. They
Yeah.
need some type of challenge.
Yeah.
Maybe they want to be able to pivot in the organization, not get stuck in the one role they got hired for. Not just an increase in responsibilities at times or different responsibilities, but also is there an opportunity to pivot and leverage their skill set in a different area?
Yeah.
That is really attractive to a rock star, that they have some options, and that helps with retention as well. And then growth on a personal level, a lot of the times is also attractive to them. So if there's a program that you're able to formalize, that maybe they get some personal development coaching
But
or
is it
something on the personal development side,
okay? I mean, are we talking like job skills or like
leadership qualities, soft
okay.
skills, intangibles.
Okay.
We
Okay,
all
that's
know that it goes a long way in an organization. If that's
yeah.
lacking, it's like the collaboration is not at its peak.
Mm-hmm.
Things are not going to get optimized. No one's cross collaborating because they don't know how to communicate effectively. So maybe having an ongoing, and I've seen this work really well, like a leadership development program internally that helps professionals continue to improve these skills as
Okay.
they continue to grow into higher levels. There's some type of formality
Okay.
in the process for them.
Well, I think we kind of touched on it earlier, but in the outline, I had noted a story that there was an executive realized his company's HR department had been botching the messaging and failed to build an attraction engine. Do you remember? Do you know which company I'm referring to?
So
Also,
at first, I was actually approaching this partner for another partner opportunity with my client.
okay.
Yet the conversation went a different way. So the compensation expectations didn't align with my client. So I kind of
Okay.
pivoted the conversation into them expanding their team and what they're looking for. So I took it as an opportunity to see if there's a business development opportunity versus just throwing away this conversation because they didn't align with, my active client that's hiring.
Mhm.
And he just mentioned, and he's at the highest level at the firm, partner, so an equity partner. He mentioned he came into the firm and they were struggling with hiring high performing talent. And I just kept asking questions to kind of uncover what he thought was getting in the way
Mhm.
and gave him some suggestions to take back. And then I had a follow-up call with him. So it didn't just happen in one conversation. Kind of
Mhm.
gave him some suggestions to take back
Okay.
and asked him about, hey, what's the messaging that, because I knew the first interaction was with HR. Do you know the messaging that's happening? What are they saying about your firm? I know you have great growth plans. You seem to be a great leader. They obviously brought you in for a reason as a partner. And he just mentioned he wasn't sure because he never asked. So that's a huge mistake to just
Okay.
assume that your HR department or anyone is doing things the right way. But when
Okay.
he dug in after our call, we spoke the next day and he said, basically, like, you're right. This messaging, he was disgusted by it. He was not happy. I don't know the message. I didn't ask him, oh, what are they saying or how are they explaining things? He was just disgusted, if we want to get down to it. like
Mhm.
annoyed. It was shocking. Like, what the is happening? It was a shock to the system. Like, what the hell? How could we not know this? Something so basic, you don't even think. So it was
Okay,
a
great.
shocker. Like, that's disgusting. Like, this is what we're saying to candidates. No wonder we can't hire the right people. We're hiring low performers. Our messaging is all off. The new vision that this company had, they were trying to be more innovative, transformative, automate a lot of things,
Okay.
be more strategic. I'm just thinking through it now. Instead of focusing on the mundane items, they want to automate those things and be more strategic. So whoever's coming into the organization or whoever they were talking to wasn't emphasizing this huge innovation that they're going through. It's just
Mhm.
like, oh, it's a regular, let's say, tax manager role. That's not exciting. But what's exciting is to the right rock star, the rock star doesn't want to deal with the administrative stuff. If you say, we're automating the admin stuff, that's music to their ears
Mhm.
on the tax side, which
Yeah.
is very mundane. He was pissed that this was not happening.
Okay.
And he was like, why are we not focused on our messaging needs to be focused on the strategic part
Uh-huh.
of this manager role versus just these mundane job responsibilities that we're not going to be doing anymore. Our long-term vision is we're not going to touch these items anymore. We're going to be more strategic. That doesn't align with what
Mhm.
HR is saying right now.